Depersonalization or derealization is something I just stumbled on through YouTube and then started doing research. I must have been living under a rock. But I guess it makes sense because from what I'm starting to piece together, it looks like I'm going to do more research. So this is just the beginning, and I'm going to continue researching. But I've done quite a bit of research tonight, and I'm going to continue on because I want to help people. Of course, that's why I'm here. I feel that's why I'm here, and in this case, I was shocked to see so many, mostly young people, making videos suffering from this so-called condition. And when they started talking about it, the description of it, of what you were going through, I'm talking to you now if you're going through it. I went through that, and it was a completely different experience. And others, now I've contacted in the spiritual community, have gone through this and had a completely different experience. And I believe, as do apparently others, others in the spiritual community have tapped into this and are aware of this and believe what I intuitively felt immediately when I heard it, and then I started researching it and the definition and watching the videos and etc., that this is being misdiagnosed. Again, I'm going to keep digging to see, but I believe at this point it's really looking like, to me, that you're suffering needlessly, and it's because and it's understandable. I'm not judging, but I believe you're misunderstanding what's happening. And I think maybe the reason I missed this, what seems to be a big problem for people, is because they're not in the spiritual community. And I think if they were, they would be looking at it differently. And so, to break it down for those that are watching this that don't know what I'm talking about, that we're in the dark on this as I was, there's not a lot of information so far that I can find on it. It's just some vague clinical, there is a clinical definition, but it's basically just the vague description of people feeling, they're still aware, they're still in their bodies, they can still feel sensations. And there's variations on this experience, of course. Everybody's going to have a slightly different. But from what I've seen, the description and the videos people are talking about, it's all very similar, and that is that it's this out of the blue experience where they feel disassociated. They don't feel like a person. They can still feel their body, but they feel separate. They feel that their emotions, everything feels disconnected from, and their identity feels gone. And then from this, it shocks them and it scares them, and to the point that enough have gone to the medical field, and they've slapped this label on it, and a lot seem to be on meds. But from what I've seen, it seems most of the people are curing themselves by waiting it out or finding little tricks and sharing on YouTube, which is great. They're helping each other. It's great that you're doing that. To try to wait it out and do things to get over it. But here's the thing, and I hope you open your mind to this. Only because I hate to see people suffer, and I hate to see people miss an opportunity. A wonderful opportunity. It really is. There's nothing to be afraid of. What you're describing is a type of awakening. And if you start researching Buddhism, spirituality, if you go on YouTube and start looking up gurus like Osho and Muji, those are the only two I can think of top of my head, but there's a lot out there. That'll point you in the right direction. If you start looking at Buddhism and you start looking at satsangs and you start looking at a lot of people on this planet that are trying to relieve themselves of suffering, and this has been going on for forever. You know, these teachings have been around forever, but it's with the shift that seems to be happening spiritually, but what's going on the planet. A lot of people are awakening. A lot of people are wishing to not suffer, because we know the mind we suffer, our thoughts, is what creates a lot of the, if not all of the suffering. And so that's what leads a lot of people to these spiritual teachings. So I believe, and I'm going to keep digging into it, excuse me, and I'm currently reaching out, contacting people who feel they're suffering from this. And if you feel you're suffering, feel free to contact me at michaelpburke@yahoo.com so we can discuss it and we can compare, and I can hopefully ease your mind or maybe open your mind a little. Now, because I understand so many of you have really had such bad experiences, that you might not be open to this, and you might not be open to spirituality, or you might just, because of your bad experience, you just might not believe what I'm telling you. But logically, this, and from what I know, and from what I've looked into spirituality, this right away it rang a bell. But beyond that, the real reason that's driving me is I had this experience. And it was about 8 months ago or so. And I had almost the identical experience of what you're all describing. The difference being, it was wonderful for me. And I believe the reason it was wonderful was because I already had that intention. I was already looking into spirituality and looking and embracing the idea of that we are one, that we're greater. I was also looking, if you start looking into science as well, it's not just spirituality, science, there's a lot of modern day science. If you look into holographic universe, holographic principles, you start looking into Bruce Lipton, all these other science is really starting to come together, and we're finding a lot of scientists actually becoming spiritual because they're starting to realize so much they didn't know about the existence in our reality, and it's becoming very common now in scientific fields and being embraced more and more, and we're going to see it more and more. The understanding of what this reality is, and that it's actually more of a hologram. In other words, this isn't real. I mean, it is real, but it's not real. They're finding out so much. I could go on, and I don't want to bombard you. They've discovered that in all matter, of course, we're made of matter, everything's made of matter, that we're all made of the same thing, so even scientifically we are all one. We're connected with everything. Scientifically, law of attraction in our mind, they're starting to, Bruce Lipton, is one of them who's started to really realize that, and he was a geneticist, I believe, that our thoughts actually do send out signals and waves and energy and vibrations, and we are actually creating our reality. So anyways, all these things are coming together, but so what I'm saying is that both spirituality and science is starting to really show us that there's so much that we actually don't understand of what's actually going on in this existence, and that we're more than our minds in these bodies, that there's much more going on. Consciousness. So, sorry if I'm getting sidetracked here, it's just a lot of information that I have and that I know, and again, I don't want to bombard you. I'm just trying to give you the quick skinny on it, but please, look into it. or talk to me and I'll point you in the right direction. But back to my experience, I was already looking into those things. So I was already intuitively and through and researching, starting to realize that there was more to us, more to all this than just this physical and even in our minds. And of course wanting to release the suffering that comes from the mind. So I was already open to a lot of these ideas of letting go of the body-mind. And so because I was already open to that, when this happened, and it happened, it's not like I specifically intended I'm going to, depersonalize or separate myself. It wasn't anything like that. I was just really opening up to these ideas and embracing them and doing a lot of meditation and quieting the mind, silencing the mind, and kind of opening them up to the universe. And through that, I believe that's what then just out of the blue triggered this. And it was a 3-day experience. And it was just so similar to what a lot of you are describing. Now, it's not exactly, but I believe that's also because, let's put it this way, if two people are about to get on a roller coaster, if one person has a belief that they're going to die in this roller coaster, that it's dangerous, or they're just afraid of it, they're going to have a different experience. Not only are they going to be afraid and have a bad experience, but they'll even start getting symptoms. They might start getting nauseous, or they get a headache, or they might have a nosebleed, who knows, right? They're going to start manifesting. And that's the other thing to look into, is we manifest in our bodies. It's also becoming real known now that science and spirituality is starting to embrace that a good portion of our diseases are actually we're causing them. And that's another big one, a big piece of pie to bite on. But we do manifest. And I've seen it so many times, and I see it in my own life. And so that person on the roller coaster is going to manifest those symptoms, and they're going to have a slightly, although they'll have a similar experience on the roller coaster, it's still going to be, there's going to be a lot of differences. Now, the person that had no fear of it and was excited to go on it are not going to have those symptoms. So they're going to have a different experience. So I say that just as an analogy to say that open your mind, because what I am going to describe in mine is not going to be exactly like yours, I think. But similar enough for you to see and hopefully open your mind. And again, I believe any differences are because I was already very open to it. And so I wasn't afraid. In a sense, I was, on some level, I was looking to release myself from the chains of body and mind. And so when it happened spontaneously, I was just sitting in a cafe, and there was no reason, there was nothing leading up to it. Not even my meditations, nothing. It was just suddenly, for lack of a better word, I got into this state. And it was this, for me, it was this feeling of vastness, this endless space. And I was sitting in the cafe, and though I was still aware I was in my body. I was still in my body. I could still feel it, but barely. You know what I mean? So I could still feel and touch. I was drinking a tea. I was still in my body. I still had the sensations, but I wasn't attached to them anymore. And my mind was incredibly at peace. It became even more peaceful than it normally is. I've got, even through meditation, and I've got a pretty peaceful mind for the most part. I'm not a warrior or somebody who can't stop the mind from running. But this was to a whole nother level, where just there was a peace of mind and a separation. I didn't even feel like me. I felt like nothing. It was a feeling of nothingness. However, at the same time, and again, this might vary from what you experienced, but again, as this started happening, I was already embracing it because I had already been, as I said, looking into and going down the spiritual route. So I started to feel wonderful. I started to feel this feeling of just peace and joy. But without thinking, there was really no thought process. It was just this feeling. But I was very aware. I was aware of what, and again, this might vary for some of you, but I was actually, and I saw some video that somebody said that it felt like your eye was back, your eyes were back, or it was kind of like that. I was aware of everything that was going on in the room simultaneously. I was watching shadows dancing on the walls that were coming from a tree outside. I was watching the trees shimmer in the sun and the wind. I was listening to 3 different conversations. I was having a conversation with a friend. I was listening intensely to a song. I was doing all these things simultaneously with ease, without effort. And the more I was feeling this, because I believe because of the spiritual direction I was going, that's why I embraced it and I started just enjoying it. And I got this permagrin on my face and I was just so joyous and so calm of mind. And although my mind was, I was talking and everything, and I was understanding what was going on, but the mind was working in a different way than it normally does. It wasn't the ego or the personality, breaking it down and judging it and classifying, because we tend to do that. Our brains label, we see something and say, oh, that's wrong, that person did this, and oh, that's what our mind is. We classify everything. There was no classification. It was just, it was a witnessing, it was a seeing, it was a perceiving, and that's what they talk about in Buddhist and religious teachings. The perceiver, of trying to find the perceiver behind ego, behind the mind, separate from the body. And so this was an incredible experience, and so as it built, I think that's from there, this is where it probably begins to really differ, is of course I was embracing it and enjoying it, and it just, I was at one with everything. A bomb could have gone off and it wouldn't have bothered me. You know what I mean? I would have helped people, I would have, I wouldn't have ignored it. It's not like I didn't care about anything, but I was in a stable, peaceful, basically the real state of what we are, the consciousness state. I was in that state where there were no fears. And so I was embracing it. And then some other side effects, which again you probably didn't feel because you were going a different direction, because you were unaware of what was going on and you were afraid. I feel, this is what I'm thinking. So I started to feel, it felt like I was walking on balls of energy, and I actually was vibrating on a high, but of course I was really enjoying it and just embracing it. And so my body was full of energy to the point where I touched my friend and her arm went a little numb. But anyways, I really believe this is the same experience, except I was more prepared for it. And I've been doing a lot of research on what people have been saying and that are suffering with it, and I'm going to continue to. I've been watching a lot of videos. It sounds so familiar, and from what all my connections and my research in the spiritual community over the years, it's ringing so many bells. And because of discovering this, I've reached out to a lot of people in the spiritual community, and I've started researching what they're saying as well over the years, and it seems to be consensus. They believe this is the system, the medical system, and the society, again, not understanding what's really going on and misdiagnosing and just trying to cover up, with drugs and whatnot, symptoms and a label. And but it seems mostly people just trying to help themselves, help each other, and just find little tricks to kind of wait it out. It's ironic that people are suffering from it, and it's unfortunate, and they're trying to avoid it, where I've been trying to get back to it. I'm in a great place, don't get me wrong, and I'm trying not to force it, because that's part of spirituality. You get back in the mind if I start trying to want it too much, that's the mind, the ego, the seeking, and then that can make it difficult. So I'm trying to just get back to where I, just back to my normal practices and way of living, and hope it comes again. So it's ironic that so many of you are desperately trying not to have that experience when so many of us are. So basically I better wrap this up. This is just a beginning video on this. Again, I'm going to, really just because I want to help. I mean, I'm not suffering from it, but I hate to see people suffering from something, especially if they don't need to. And there's a lot of you. And again, I have a strong intuition on this, and with my research so far, and I'm going to keep going on it, I really believe that you're misinterpreting. And actually, what you're afraid of, it can be a fantastic, amazing experience for you. But you have to open your mind. It's just, you can start by, looking into those individuals on YouTube that I mentioned, Muji, Osho, look into spirituality, look into the sciences that are related to spirituality, Bruce Lipton, holographic universe, those kind of things. Just start dabbling in a little bit. And see if you can open your mind to that. And start looking at people that have had awakenings and what they describe and out-of-body experiences and stuff. And try to see if you can come at it at a different angle. And see what happens from there. That's all I'm suggesting. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of help for you guys anyways, other than just you finding your own tricks and waiting it out, and some of you getting medicated, but there doesn't seem to be any real help out there. So what do you have to lose? Just open your mind up to this a little bit and see what happens. Maybe it'll help. Maybe an incredible gift that a lot of us are seeking and some of us have experienced. It can be totally different for you. But as you start to look into spirituality, you'll start to see that we get attached to our egos. I mean, we're not our minds. We're not our egos. I am not Michael B. Berg. It's just a designation. It's given to us when we're born. Society tells us who we are. People tell us who we are. We start to tell ourselves. But if you really look at your life, you've changed so many times. Your body actually has changed itself. Your body's completely different. Your body is not even close to the same body it was when you were a baby. It's actually, the cells have completely replaced themselves so many times over. Although there's similarities, it's a completely different body. And even your personality, if you think of how we change, even on the most simple levels, you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. So if you're not the same person, so then you're not really that person. You're not really that ego, right? Because it changes. Our opinions change. We change your mind on everything. And so, again, those are just little pointers to show you that we're not really our bodies and minds. It is part of the experience we're going through, but there's so much more. And there's a massive awakening happening. And I feel that a lot of you, if not all of you, are suffering needlessly and actually missing an opportunity to join the rest of us in this wonderful awakening that will help mankind move to the next level so we can stop hurting each other, stop hurting the planet. So again, I better wrap this up. So this is just video 1. I won't do another one for a while until I've talked to a lot of you, until I've really done as much research as I can. But I basically just wanted to reach out and say that, don't panic and open your mind, if you can, that this actually could be something completely different. It could be an incredible experience. And it makes me wonder too, because it seems to be mostly, if not all, young people. Which is, if you, in the spiritual community, that's where we're seeing a lot of the biggest awakenings. I mean, people are awakening at all ages, but we're seeing huge awakenings in the youth. And so that's another bell. Why is it just young people, pretty much? Even the older people that I've seen, the few older ones, they say they started when they were younger. So please open your mind. Feel free to contact me. Don't be afraid of the possibility. If you decide that you don't believe this, or you look into it, and that's fine. But you got nothing to lose to just open your mind to it. There's so much that we still really don't know. Science is still barely scratching the surface. The medical profession, anybody that's really paying attention, we know they're just covering up symptoms. If you look at what even in the last few decades, they used to lobotomize people. They used to do, things they used to do, and just even 10, 20, 30 years ago. So it's always changing, and they're baby steps. The traditional sciences, their medical sciences are moving forward, but really we're seeing it's just, the medical pharmaceutical is just medicating people and covering up symptoms. And even with mental conditions, people, I've know so many people that have suffered and just been given antidepressants, and that mess them up worse, or they work for a while and then if they don't work, they just, we'll try this one. How many times have you been to a doctor for anything, and if something doesn't work, they say, we'll try this then, we'll try this. They're just shooting in the dark. And, but anyways, that's another big conversation about the medical field. But, don't be so trusting of what, medical field is labeling and just telling you, oh yeah, it's just this. Because from what I've seen, even what they're saying, they're not doing or saying a whole lot about it. And that's another tip off that they don't, that and it seems to be a big problem. I mean, I couldn't believe how many people, I lost track of how many are on YouTube suffering from this. How come I have never heard of it? How come it's not mainstream? We should all know about it. So that tells me that, they've slapped a label on it. They don't know what it is. So they took a guess. And even in their description, if you look at the medical description, it really is also a description of awakening, of a spiritual awakening. In fact, I even saw in Wikipedia, it actually mentioned the word awakening. Self-awareness. It actually said self-awareness. Meaning aware that you're a perceiver. Aware, and that's what the separation is. Well, I say separation, but it's really, once you embrace it, it becomes more of a connectedness. But it's a separation from who you believe you are. And from that you're just this body. So please open your minds. I hate to see you suffer. I have nothing to gain in making this video. I see a lot of people suffering, and again, from what I experience and my intuition, I think this doesn't need to happen. And I think, as well as so many people out there missing an opportunity, they're running from an opportunity because they don't understand. And that's I'm not judging, that's understandable. We get afraid of what we don't know. We all do. But I think there's more going on here. I think something wonderful has been presented to you. So try to open your mind. You got nothing to lose. I'm not saying try to make it happen again. I'm saying if it's happening anyways, why not try to perceive it from a different, look into all the things I've been describing and just see if maybe that changes your experience. Just that alone, just looking into spirituality and the things I'm discussing, that just might be enough. Because again, when I didn't ask for it, I didn't intend it specifically to happen, but because I was already open to all those things when it happened, I reveled in it. And because I reveled in it and I kind of understood what was happening on some level, it was an incredible experience. A freeing experience. Such a peaceful experience. But I can totally see if you didn't know what was happening, it could be quite frightening. And I've even seen reactions when you tell other people this, that when in satsangs especially, you see a lot of people that when they go through the stages of letting go of ego and self, you'll see them tell the gurus a lot that family and friends start to be afraid of them or afraid of what's going on because they describe this. It's not that they don't care about people. It's not like they turn into sociopaths. It's not the case, but their attachment isn't there anymore. They're not easily offended or hurt anymore. So they still care about the people in their lives, but they're not in such a needy, codependent way that we're all kind of born into. And so that starts to scare other people in their life. Even when I've described such things, I've had reactions like that. So what I'm saying is, whether it's other people or the person going through it, it can be frightening if you don't know what's going on. But we can't be afraid. Well, we can, but we shouldn't be afraid of what's happening naturally to us. So understanding is the way. So hopefully you'll open your mind to this, and maybe that just alone, that then when it comes again, if you just slowly, don't go crazy, just slowly delve into spirituality just a little bit, just let these concepts go in. Don't make any decisions, don't make any intentions, just slowly start to open your mind to it and see what happens from there. And maybe that alone, after some time, then if it comes, you'll have a totally different experience. And that would be amazing if that happens. I would love to, if anybody does, if anybody has been suffering from this and then has a completely different experience from the same experience, please share with me, share with the world. It's important. A lot of people need help. A lot of people, young people are suffering, I think, needlessly. So I'll wrap it up. Love, light, laughter, and awakenings.